Hey there, readers, writers, and friends. Story Serpent here, and today we are talking about Adam Gidwitz's Max in the Land of Lies, the follow-up to Max in the House of Spies. It was published in this year, February 2025, by Dutton's Children's Books, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. But before we get into all of that, today's random words are like, share, subscribe, expatriate. So, I have to tell you, I was so excited for this book after I read the first one. You guys remember my review. It was glowing. I thought it was wonderful. There were so many things that Adam was doing right. So let's see what this book has to say for itself, shall we? Max is on a mission. Well, two missions. One has been assigned by his British spy masters: infiltrate the Funk House, the center of Nazi radio and propaganda. The other they have forbidden: find his parents. Max Bretzfeld was willing to do anything to return to Germany, even become a British spy. Training complete and forged papers in hand, the Radio Wunderkind's missions have begun. But nothing is as he expected. His parents are missing. Nazi intelligence is watching him, and the lines between lies and truth are becoming more blurred each day. Back in Berlin, Max will need every tool at his disposal, from his radio expertise and spy training to the help of Berg and Stein, the immortal creatures living on his shoulders. Even so, there's no guarantee he'll make it out of Berlin alive. Max's most dangerous mission is about to begin in the thrilling conclusion of the World War II spy duology that began with Max in the House of Spies. Wow. I think that would sell this book to virtually anyone. It's a fantastic blurb. It tells us exactly what we can expect from the book. There's going to be action. There's going to be tension. We are back in the heart of Berlin in Germany in World War II. All kinds of reasons to be terrified for Max and to really hope he is successful in his mission. And given the way the first book ended, we really can't stop with book one. That's important. This is not a duology that you can read one book and be good with it, because we are left with a cliffhanger, a rather tragic and extreme cliffhanger. So we need to know what happens to Max. From outer appearances, the trappings, of course, we have this very similarly styled book jacket. So obviously these two are meant to be a pair. Again, very dynamic. We've got a sense of who all the characters are. We've got Berg and Stein hanging out on Max's shoulders, so we know there's going to continue to be this fantastical element. We do get a few magical instances, just like in book one. Book two has Berg and Stein helping out occasionally. Most of the time, though, they're acting as kind of a mental sounding board and like the voice of adults, the voice of experience, people who understand the history of what's going on, that Max can bounce ideas off of throughout the story, just as he did in book one. Underneath our book jacket, we have this beautiful embossing on the cover. The hardcover is very durable. You can see I've already put it through its paces a bit, but it has held up really, really well. So Dutton, as almost always I would say, is producing quality products for sure. So let's dive in. What's working, what's not? As far as the prose goes, Gidwitz knows his craft. Every sentence is well crafted, it's necessary, you don't feel like the language is flowery, you also don't feel like you're being left in a white room 96% of the time. I think there were a couple of places where I didn't really have a sense of what the building he was in looked like, other than you're in a hallway, now you're in an office, you know. But it was never significant enough that it pulled me out of the book. In terms of character, Max's character is complex, he's complicated, and one of the things that Gidwitz has done, which I think a lot of people would have a hard time with, is that he really tries to humanize the German people during Nazi occupation, during the reign of the Nazis. One of the themes throughout the book is there are as many reasons to collaborate with the Nazis as there were Germans in Germany. Some people were doing it because they didn't want to lose their jobs. Some people were doing it to protect their families. Some people were doing it because they bought and sold the Kool-Aid as much as any of them could. But even the people Max finds to be allies, the people he's working with, they can't help but go along with what's happening. In part because they went from being so incredibly impoverished to now having a sense of purpose. The government is working again. There's an economy to participate in, of course, asterisk, unless you're on the wrong side of the Nazis, and they make that very plain. Again, throughout the book, Gidwitz does a really wonderful job of balancing that sense of like, yes, you wouldn't know a lot of these people were Nazis just by having a conversation with them. They wouldn't come off as bigoted or aggressive or militaristic. They were just average people trying to get through their day. At the same time, Max is under a tremendous amount of pressure throughout the book. The tension holds completely because, again, Nazis be Nazis, and Gidwitz doesn't back away from that either. He shows what the youth programs were like. He shows how much violence there was inherent in that. He does a really excellent job of describing the funk house and the hierarchy and how people moved and functioned and worked in that society. So it's absolutely fascinating. However, Gidwitz has done us all dirty. And that is because he includes an event that I think is absolutely age inappropriate, and that is the Night of Long Knives. And it is described to Max by one of his allies who, for probably at least a chapter and a half, no, probably two chapters worth of material, the only information we are getting is this man who has allied himself with Max. He runs a radio shop. He thinks Max is brilliant because, of course, Max is brilliant. That's half the fun. He's gay. And his gay partner left for Australia after the Night of Long Knives. And he gives not a super detailed account, but a general overview of what happened and a bit of why. The reason I know this is totally inappropriate for the age group is because Gidwitz does not provide in his annotated bibliography a primary source that would be age appropriate. Y'all remember book 1? How glowingly I showed you that gorgeous annotated bibliography at the end where he's got citations for teachers specifically, for young adults, for middle grade. These are the primary sources you want to go over. These are good ways to introduce younger kids, all of these things. He has 0 primary sources on the Night of Long Knives. 0. Which should tell you this is not something that should be going into curriculum for this age group. The Night of Long Knives is an important, tragic piece of our world history that adults should absolutely understand, that older teens should understand when they're coming back to World War II later on in their education. We all learn in layers. We all learn in levels of understanding. This particular event is unnecessary to a 10-year-old's understanding of World War II. And quite frankly, when I finished the book, I was furious because the rest of the book is so stinking good. It's like Gidwitz trips over the necessity of his own ideology because now I can no longer, in good conscience, recommend this duology, book 1 or 2, to educators. I look like a liar now because book 1 I loved so much. I told everybody teach this. And if anybody did, they're going to get a hold of book 2 and go, now I have to tell my 10-year-old, no, you can't read book 2. If Gidwitz wanted to explore those ideas, he could have written a book for teens. But he chose to write a middle grade, aimed at that upper end of the middle grade, 10 to 13. And I cannot believe he did this to us. So, the story serpent is giving Max in the Land of Lies an Insidious. Don't read it. Don't give it to your kids. Despite how great everything else in it is, it does that almost to intentionally slip in a bunch of ideological information that a 10-year-old just doesn't need. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Read on, write on, stay sharp.